So, Tom, remind me of the pronunciation of the title again.
Yeah, the dry selvages.
Selvages. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we are live. So for those of you who are going to be watching this via YouTube, we are continuing our project to read T.S. Eliot's The Four Quartets. And our strategy is that we are going to read one quartet in a reading, and we will have some discussion on it, but not an exhaustive discussion. And then after, this is the third one that we're reading today, the Dry Selvages. Okay. This is the third four altogether. So we will read this straight through. And then after we read it straight through, then we will come back and read it in pieces and talk about it generally. But this will not be an exhaustive discussion by any means. And then after we've completed all four quartets, then we're going to spend probably at least a session or two just going over the whole poem and seeing what we've learned. And as Joan reminded us today, this is not an easy poem. But I think we've been having a very profitable time in the reading. So with that said, let me make sure. Am I the first reader today, Nan? Somebody who can see the chat?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And who is the last reader today? Oh, the last on the chat list.
Donna.
Anne Meisner. No,
Anne Meisner.
you and Anne Meisner.
And I'm after who?
You're after
And
Donna.
Okay.
You're the last on the list.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so here we go. The Dry Selvages. The Dry Selvages, presumably Les Trois Sauvages, is a small group of rocks with a beacon off the northeast coast of Cape Ann, Massachusetts. Selvages is pronounced to rhyme with assuages. A groaner is a whistling buoy. You know, buoy floating out in the water. Okay. 1. I don't know much about gods, but I think that the river is a strong brown god, sullen, untamed, intractable. Patient to some degree. At first recognized as a frontier, useful, untrustworthy as a conveyor of commerce. Then only a problem confronting the builder of bridges. The problem once solved, the brown god is almost forgotten by the dwellers in cities ever. However, implacable, keeping his seasons and rages, destroyer, reminder of what men choose to forget. Unhonored, unpropitiated by worshippers of the machine, but waiting, watching, and waiting. Next reader.
His rhythm was present in the nursery bedroom, in the rank ailanthus of the April dooryard, in the smell of grapes on the autumn table, and the evening circle in the winter's gaslight. The river is within us. The sea is all about us. The sea is the land's edge, also the granite into which it reaches, the beaches where it tosses its hints of earlier and other creation, the starfish, the hermit crab, the whale's backbone, the pools where it offers to our curiosity the more delicate algae of the sea anemone. Next, please.
It tosses up our losses. The torn seine, the shattered lobster pot, the broken oar, and the gear of foreign dead gentlemen, dead men. The sea has many voices, many gods and many voices. The salt is on the briar rose. The fog is in the fir trees. The sea howl and the sea yelp are different voices, often heard together. The whine in the rigging, the menace and caress of wave that breaks on water, the distant rote in the granite teeth, and the wailing warning from the approaching headland are all sea voices, and the heavier groaner rounded homewards, and the seagull. And under the oppression of the silent fog, the tolling bell measures time, not our time, rung by the unhurried groundswell, a time older than the time of chronometers, older than time counted by anxious, worried women lying awake, calculating the future, trying to unweave, unwind, unravel, and piece together the past and the future. Next, please, Anne.
Between midnight and dawn, when the past is all deception, the future futureless, before the morning watch, when time stops and time is never ending, and the groundswell that is and was from the beginning clangs the bell. 2. Where is there an end of it, the soundless wailing, the silent withering of autumn flowers, dropping their petals and remaining motionless? Where is there an end to the drifting wreckage, the prayer of the bone on the beach, the unprayable prayer of the calamitous annunciation? Next, please.
There is no end but addition, the trailing consequence of further days and hours. While emotion takes to itself the emotionless years of living among the breakage of what was believed in as the most reliable and therefore the fittest for renunciation. There is the final addition, the failing pride or resentment at failing powers, the unattached devotion which might pass for devotionless in a drifting boat with a slow leakage, the silent listening to the undeniable clamour of the bell of the last annunciation. Orla?
Where is the end of them, the fishermen sailing into the wind's tail, where the fog cowers? We cannot think of a time that is oceanless, or of an ocean not littered with wastage, or of a future that is not liable, like the past, to have no destination. We have to think of them as forever bailing, setting and hauling, while the northeast lowers over shallow banks, unchanging and erosionless, or drawing their money, drawing sails at dockage, not as making a trip that will be unpayable for a haul that will not bear examination. Donna.
There is no end of it, the voiceless wailing, no end to the withering of withered flowers, to the movement of pain that is painless and motionless, to the drift of the sea and the drifting wreckage. The bone's prayer to death is God, only the hardly, barely prayable prayer of the one annunciation. It seems as one becomes older that the past has another pattern and ceases to be a mere sequence or even development. The latter a partial fallacy, encouraged by superficial notions of evolution, which becomes in the popular mind a means of disowning the past. The moments of happiness, not the sense of well-being, fruition, fulfillment, security or affection, or even a very good dinner, but the sudden illumination. We had the experience but missed the meaning, and approach to the meaning restores experience in a different form, beyond any meaning we can assign to happiness. Anne?
I have said before, sorry. Let's see, I have said before that the past experience revived in the meaning is not the experience of one life only, but of many generations, not forgetting something that is probably quite ineffable. The backward look behind the assurance of recorded history, the backward half look over the shoulder towards the primitive terror, Now we come to discover that the moment of agony, whether or not due to misunderstanding, having hoped for the wrong things or dreaded the wrong things, is not in question, are likewise permanent. With such permanence as time has, we appreciate this better in the agony of others nearly experienced involving ourselves than in our own, for our own past is covered by the currents of action, but the torment of others remains an experience unqualified, unworn by subsequent attrition. Next.
People change and smile, but the agony abides. Time the destroyer is time the preserver. Like the river with its cargo of dead Negroes, cows, and chicken coops. The bitter apple and the bite in the apple. And the ragged rock and the restless waters, waves wash over it, fogs conceal it. On a halcyon day, it is merely a monument. In navigable weather, it is always a sea mark to lay a course by. But in the somber season, or the sudden fury, is what it always was. Next, please.
3. I sometimes wonder if that is what Christia meant. Among other things, or one way of putting the same thing, that the future is a faded song, a royal rose, or a lavender spray of wistful regret for those who are not yet here to regret, pressed between yellow leaves of a book that has never been opened. And the way up is the way down, the way forward is the way back. You cannot face it steadily, but this thing is sure, that time is no healer. The patient is no longer here. Joe?
When the train starts and the passengers are settled, to fruit, periodicals, and business letters, and those who saw them off have left the platform, their faces relax from grief into relief, to the sleepy rhythm of 100 hours, fair paid travelers, not escaping from the past, into different lives or into any future. You are not the same people who left that station or who will arrive at any terminus. While the narrowing rails slide together behind you, and on the deck of the drumming liner, watching the furrow that widens behind you, you shall not think the past is finished, or the future is before us, Anne.
At nightfall, in the rigging and the area, is a voice descanting, though not to the ear, the murmuring shell of time, and not in any language. Fare forward, you who think that you are voyaging. You are not those who saw the harbour receding, or those who will disembark. Here, between the hither and the further shore, while time is withdrawn, consider the future and the past with an equal mind. At the moment, which is not of action or inaction, you can receive this on whatever sphere of being The mind of a man may be intent at the time of death. That is the one action, and the time of death is every moment, which shall fructify in the lives of others. And do not think of the fruit of action. Fare forward. Tom.
O voyagers, O seamen, you who come to port, and you whose bodies will suffer the trial and judgment of the sea, or whatever event, this is your real destination. So Krishna, as when he admonished Arjuna on the field of battle, not farewell, but fare forward, voyagers. For lady whose shrine stands on the promontory, pray for all those who are in ships, those whose business has to do with fish, and those concerned with every lawful traffic, and those who conduct them. Repeat a prayer also on behalf of women who have seen their sons or husbands setting forth and not returning. Filia del tuo filio, Queen of Heaven. Orla.
Also pray for those who were in ships and ended their voyage on the sand, in the sea's lips, or in the dark throat which will not reject them, or wherever cannot reach them the sound of the sea bell's perpetual Angelus. 5. To communicate with Mars, converse with spirits, to report the behavior of the sea monster, describe the horoscope, horospicate or scry, observe disease in signatures, evoke biography from the wrinkles of the palm, and tragedy from fingers, release omens by sortilege or tea leaves, riddle the inevitable with playing cards, fiddle with pentagram or barbituric acids, or dissect the recurrent image into pre-conscious terrors, to explore the womb or tomb or dreams. All these are usual. Donna.
All these are usual pastimes and drugs and features of the press, and always will be. Some of them especially when there is distress of nations and perplexity, whether on the shores of Asia or in the Edgware Road. Men's curiosity searches past and future and clings to that dimension. But to apprehend the point of intersection of the timeless with time is an occupation for the same. No occupation either, but something given and taken in a lifetime's death in love, ardor and selflessness and self-surrender. For most of us, there is only the unattended moment, the moment in and out of time, the distraction fit lost in a shaft of sunlight, the wild thyme unseen, or the winter lightning, or the waterfall, or music heard so deeply that is not heard at all, but you are the music, while the music lasts.
These are only hints and guesses, hints followed by guesses, and the rest is prayer, observance, discipline, thought, and action. The hint half guessed, the gift half understood is incarnation. Here, the impossible union of spheres of existence is actual. Here, the past and future are conquered and reconciled, where action were otherwise movement of that which is only moved and has in it no source of movement, driven by demonic, sonic powers. And right action is freedom from past and future. Also, for most of us, this is the aim. Next.
Never here to be realized, who are only undefeated, because we have gone on trying, we content at the last, if our temporal reversion nourish, not too far from the yew tree, the life of significant soil.
Mm.
Okay, and that is Little Gideon, is it not? No, dry salvages. Okay.
One thing that jumped out at me at the very end there was something I heard on the computer this morning was if our temporal reversion nourish not too far from the yew tree, mentioned that the yew tree was traditionally in cemeteries or at the church. So that would indicate, death.
Okay.
And I looked up salvages, and it's salvages. It's like salvaging something. And also the word ailanthus, ailanthus, is a tree of heaven. It's a shade tree, and it's an invasive species.
Okay.
And the other thing is, I noticed he uses the word annunciation quite frequently in this. Annunciation is a Christian term, isn't it? It's Mary receiving the notice that she would be the mother of God.
Yep.
Another one thing that we are to look for is keywords that are repeated often, and one of those is rose.
Mm-hmm.
And we hit that.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I've been following was that key that lays out the pattern of all the quartets, and that the first is a movement of time in which brief moments of eternity are caught. The second, worldly experience, which leads to dissatisfaction. 3, purgation of the world. I can't read my writing. Something, the soul of the love of created things. Debating, I guess. Lyric prayer or affirmation. This is 4, of the need for intercession. And 5, the problem of attaining artistic wholeness, which becomes an analog for and merges, oh God, I wish I could write, into the problem of achieving spiritual health. And I thought that this particular quartet really followed that very closely.
By the way, I should mention that Joan mentioned to me that she had found an essay. And I will.
It's a lecture.
Hmm?
It's a lecture, not an essay.
A lecture. Okay. Well, I'll track it down and I will put it in the Monday Book Club Facebook page at some point. But it's on the guide to finally understanding the 4 quartets. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think there's a finally though.
Oh, okay.
When you say the key word of rose, it just resonates for me with the rose of Dante's Paradise.
Right.
He mentions that. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, good for you.
And you may remember that in the first quartet that we read, which is Burnt Norton, that there are roses in that bouquet garden. I found this quartet to be, and please don't take it wrong, I found this quartet to be more of an argument, as in structuring an argument to try to convince somebody
of God, the presence of God,
That's, a good question. I think at least in my mind, it's more of a how to view life and existence,
Mm,
time, all the big questions.
mhm.
But if you look at Finnegan's Wake and the whole notion of a river, it's feminine for Joyce.
Mhm.
And this is a sullen man river.
Yes.
Mhm.
Daisy.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many images in here of how the river edges the land or the embankments, how it carries so much debris and so much life and so much death. And it's just a very powerful meditation.
Mm.
Yeah. I think the opening things there are really, about the river, and that is really powerful. Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially in the latter years here, we've had so many floods and that, and you see the damage that rivers have done and can do, and and he kind of hits on that there. I think he was particularly thinking of the Mississippi, where he was born on the Mississippi, I think.
Mm-hmm.
There was a huge flood of the Mississippi in 1927, where all the water that could come from snow melt and runoff and everything just cascaded down the river and broke the levees, flooded the plains on both sides, got down as far as New Orleans. And New Orleans had decided to go further south and dynamite a levee so that there would be a place for the water to go other than the city. It's quite the story. It's quite the story, but the river was unrelenting in destroying any development that happened along its banks.
Yes, I don't know if you have actually looked at a hydrological map of the Mississippi River.
Mm.
And all of the waters, creeks, other rivers, et cetera, that ultimately flow into the Mississippi. If I don't remember to post that also on the Monday Morning Book Club, somebody remind me. It's very impressive. And it really, when nature decides it's going to wash things away, it is going to wash them. There will be no stopping it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know the story that actually New Orleans came within a hair's breadth, or the Mississippi River came within a hair's breadth of changing course.
Yes, yes. And it did. And that is what actually, it was unnecessary for them to have dynamited anything, because the river did change course and went to the west of the city.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think an interesting thing here is he starts with a river, okay, and he thinks of the river as a strong brown god, sullen, untamed, and intractable. But fairly soon we move away from the river and we're at the ocean.
The ocean.
Yeah.
And he does not, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, he does not personify the ocean. Well, I guess he does in a sense. He says the sea has many voices, many gods, and many voices.
Yeah.
His first sentence is, "I do not know much about gods," but he mentions the river and then the sea. And I'm looking to see if there are other things. Not quickly finding.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like this description where it says strong brown god, sullen, untamed, intractable, patient to some degree.
Some degree.
Yeah.
At first recognized as a frontier, useful, untrustworthy, as a
Yes.
conveyor of commerce.
Well, is he talking about his vision of God, or is
No, I think he's talking about the river.
about the
But-
river?
But maybe, I mean,
It's,
you might be
it's
right.
the power of nature, isn't it?
Mm.
It's the power of nature.
Yes, but
Like
when
with
you get to
nature.
cities, you begin to think, the dwellers in cities, it forgets about the power
Very
of the
quickly.
forgets
Yes.
about superstition, forgets. You always feel that the it's always in general thinking that the city dwellers give up on religiousness first and become urbanized and sophisticated and words like that. And even though he's talking about a river, I think he's alluding to something else at the same time.
Something bigger,
Mhm.
something much bigger. Well, I lived in Tokyo. Okay. And Tokyo, I experienced a number of fairly significant earthquakes in Tokyo,
Oh,
and the pattern was always the same. There would be an earthquake. The whole neighborhood would freak out. People would talk for days about how they were going to pack up and leave, that they could not take this anymore.
Mm.
And almost inevitably, within 1 week, there was no more talk like that.
Mm.
And everybody just went back to their routine with almost no mention of the earthquake again. And that actually had quite an interesting effect on me, because I realized that's what people do. Something happens, we get very upset about it, but we have this really strong desire for things to go back to normal.
yeah.
And if we get a little bit of time, most people will convince themselves that things have gone back to normal, and and Godzilla has disappeared, whatever Godzilla is at the moment.
Sounds like a San Francisco earthquake to me.
Well, it's kind of how we support ourselves in life, is that if we remembered every bad thing that happened to us, like pain and suffering and all that, if you tend to forget those things, or put them aside so they're not part of your living, that you wouldn't be able to exist.
Yeah, we can't handle it.
Mm-hmm.
We can't handle dealing with all the truth. I was wondering, what is the last 4 lines there? His rhythm was present in the nursery bedroom, in the rank of Ailanthus, the tree of heaven, of the April dooryard, in the smell of grapes on the autumn table, and the evening circle in the winter gaslight. Any ideas?
His rhythm, okay. Worship was the machine, but watching away. His rhythm. Rank, okay. Ailanthus, of course, is some sort of vine or plant.
Yeah, that's the tree of heaven that Anne was talking about.
Where is this in?
It's just coming to the just the 4 lines there before we stop dealing with the river.
Oh, okay. Oh,
The
yes,
river is within us. The sea is all about us.
I see. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that the his here is actually the river god is the his?
His rhythm.
Yeah. His rhythm is present.
The god or the river?
Yeah, the person who read this before me wrote, enclosed those with parentheses, starting with his rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
And on the next line, it says, the river is within us.
In us, yeah. And the sea is all
Yes.
about us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Before we move that far, let me just mention that I think that this line is very good. After he talks about useful, untrustworthy as a conveyor of commerce, Then only a problem confronting the builder of bridges.
Yep.
The problem once solved, the brown god is almost forgotten
It's forgotten.
by the dwellers in the city.
Yeah, I think we kind of take we take for granted our waterways until there's a crisis.
Mhm.
And so much in where I live, so much of the land has been or the waterways have been culverted, so you wouldn't even know what is the proper and form or direction of a river. And then there's a movement to try and unculvert these places, and people are amazed when they see the natural water banks and vistas available when you don't have a building on top of the former waterways.
Right.
But if then the next line it says, keeping the river keeps his seasons and rages, he's the destroyer, a reminder of what men choose to forget.
Mhm.
So
Nature
you might forget
very.
you might forget quickly, but it'll come back to remind you.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you remember Sandy? What was it? Hurricane Sandy that hit New York City.
Yeah.
You know, it had been a long time since New York had anything like that, and everybody was very shocked.
Well, it's kind of like the tornadoes that hit Cleveland last week.
Yeah.
We seldom have anything like that. As long as I've been living, that's the first time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Are we reading climate change notions into something that T.S. Eliot didn't write about? Do you know what I mean? Are we reading something he didn't write about into it? Because, we hear of all these rivers, and we are worshippers of the machine. And you basically were describing the difficulty of persuading people to do anything about the climate. And because they all, they get a few fine days, and they say, it's grand now.
Yeah, right.
And another half hurricane hits them, and they worry for a few hours, and then exactly what Duncan said happens again. But we're reading that into that. Is there another meaning to this that is not current? That's what I'm kind of.
Well, my experience, though, Joe, is currently we have a little extra frosting on the cake called climate change.
Okay.
But here in Texas, we have a long history of serious weather events that have ostensibly nothing to do with climate change.
Yes. Yeah.
So, like, I live in Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
And until Lyndon Johnson came along and built a series of 5 dams on the Colorado River, the Colorado River regularly rampaged through Austin, Texas, separating North Austin from South Austin, and there was no way to get across. Okay. And we've also had, we've had major weather events before, and I know that Eliot must have had experience of this because he was raised in St. Louis.
Yeah, he's on the Mississippi
River.
Yeah.
So
I see it. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah, I think that climate change is what's always been happening, only more so.
Yeah.
But
I think this.
Long before any humans were in Colorado, that river was doing that. And like, we are the intruders, not the rivers.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know why I'm saying it. I don't know what that has to do with the poem. I'm sorry. I'm off message here.
No. It has a lot to do with the poem.
No, not really.
There's a lot to do the poem. Then only a problem confronting the builder of bridges. The problem once solved, the brown gods are almost forgotten.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is
Yes.
a built-in thing with human beings.
That's what I think.
Mhm.
This is human nature he's talking about. We're examining it from an environmental way, but this is the way of man as well. We think we built our bridges and we can forget the experience that went into it.
Right. Right. There's actually a bit of Chinese mythology, which has to do with rivers. You might have heard that the Yellow River rampage regularly. And then there are cultural gods, and then cultural villains. There are two water gods. And the one water god tried damming the Yellow River, which is our tendency to dam it up. You know, we're just going to show that river that we're superior, and we're going to hammer down on it. The other water god or cultural hero did not dam it up. They created a drainage system in such a way that when the floods came, the water would be transferred towards the ocean through an area that would do the least damage. And within the Chinese cultural realm, of the two cultural heroes, the one is considered a villain, the one that tried to manhandle the rivers. The other is considered a true hero, the one that created the drainage, that accepted the fact that nature was going to keep naturing, that there were going to be these flooding events, and that we had to, you know, create a path for it.
Because really, there's no such thing as a river. You know, if you think about it, like if we voyaged to another star and found a planet with a great big splodge of water. I mean, what we have is one big splodge of water, and we divide it up in our foolishness into rivers and oceans, but it's just one big splob, and it changes shape into cloud and falls again, runs on the ground, back into the sea. You know, it's a false notion, the idea of sea and river. It's all one splob. I mean, the Atlantic and the Pacific, can you tell me where one ends and one begins, you know? You know, to the nearest 1,000th of a millimeter. No one can.
You bring up a good point there, Joe. This is the problem of language, period.
Yeah.
The problem of language, period. You know, I mean, it's true. All waters are connected.
Yeah, they're not just connected. They're all the one thing.
They're all one thing, but most of language is that way also, if we want to get down to it.
Okay.
So we conveniently divide things up, which I think works marvelously well, as long as we remember that we're being somewhat arbitrary.
Yeah, and that's it. Yeah, that's the builders of bridges again, isn't it? We must remember that, you know, the rules govern the bridges, and whereas the city dwellers forget it. What they call the worshippers of the machine. That's us. I mean, you know, how many of us know how an airplane flies? You know, but we pile in our thousands into them, you know.
Yeah.
The bridges are the same. We pile over bridges and don't even think of the water underneath. We forget the brown god. Yeah, I'm beginning to see it.
Yeah. And this is actually very good. I mean, you know, Eliot is clearly before climate change and all that, but certainly that unhonored, unpropitiated by worshippers of the machine, but waiting, watching, and waiting.
Yeah. Waiting, watching, and waiting. That's fantastic.
And then that flows into his rhythm was present in the nursery bedroom. In the rank Ailanthus of the April dooryard,
Okay.
et cetera, et cetera. So
Great.
that's actually taking your point even a little bit further, Joe, and saying that river, is actually in the plants, in the grapes.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. The
The end is my beginning.
river is within us.
Ah, I see. Yes.
It's a metaphor for life.
Yeah.
And
Well, once again,
it goes back to Orla's point earlier about rivers and rivers being female. They're a huge part of Joyce. And Alithia Pluribella is central to Joyce's writing.
Yeah.
Well,
the rivers, the rivers in Ireland are all female. In ancient culture, they're all, I suppose we would call them goddesses, maybe, like
yeah.
And the Shannon is another.
Well, once again, forgive me, but I'll bring in my Texas experience because in Texas we have droughts.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many of you know, the drought is the absolute worst of all catastrophes.
Yeah, no water.
No water. The drought does more damage than earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, thunderstorms. A drought is the absolute worst.
Isn't that what's causing a lot of the immigration from African nations and places where they're dependent on growing foods?
Yeah. It hasn't rained for 4 years since.
Mm-hmm.
But the drought is the absence of the god.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. No blessings. It's no blessing.
God has gone away.
Yeah, well, then you should build this. I've just looked up to 350 miles of the coastline in Texas. Your next business idea will be building desalination plants.
Yeah.
Well, maybe. First of all, let me mention I actually was raised on desalinated water. The reason I was raised on desalinated water was because I lived next door to what at one time was the world's largest oil refinery, but was then demoted to the second largest oil refinery. And we had lots of what was called flare fuel. It was the stuff left after they made the gasoline and the jet fuel and all of that, and they just had to burn it off. And so the engineers finally figured out that they could use the flare fuel to distill water. So the big problem in the desalination is figuring out what are you going to use to distill the water. So I just bring that up. But I keep my eye on water news all the time. And this water is a real big issue with me. And I think I mentioned before that actually here at the house, most of the time, I've had a couple of failures, but most of the time I live on rainwater. I would say 95% of the time for the last 30 years. I've been living off of the rainwater that I collect.
How do you collect it, Duncan?
I just put gutters on my house, and when the rain falls on the roof, the water flows into the gutters, and the gutters are piped to go into big tanks. I've got two 20,000 gallon tanks,
Mhm.
which is, just roughly speaking, that's like an 80,000 liter, two 80,000 liter tanks.
But how do you purify the water? How do you purify the water? Because it's running through those your gutters that have to.
And
That's really not a problem. Rainwater is slightly acidic to begin with,
Yeah.
and so I just use a little filter. I
Mm.
don't have to do a big thing. Texas is a little unique in the sense that we don't get a lot of leaf litter on top of our roofs because our trees are rather short
Yeah.
compared to probably Ohio. Anyway, that's a long way to wander away.
Yes.
But it is relevant because it says the river is within us, the sea is all about us.
Around us.
his poetry is quite interesting, isn't it? It's like it just flows.
Yes, right.
You know, it doesn't have a structure. It seems like it's a meditation, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Line after line of really, tremendous lines,
Mhm.
tremendous
Exactly.
in the lines. The grammar and the words are really, you can see he picked them out, and he has this and a lot of thought, philosophy, imagination.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's
There's a line there. I moved on a bit there, but towards the end, the music heard so deeply that it is not heard at all. But
Mhm.
you are the music, and the music lasts.
Yeah.
That kind of thing
It's gorgeous.
is
Yeah.
really beautiful. Yeah, yeah,
And just the importance of being conscious of time.
yeah, yeah.
Like if you let it go, you not remember, not recognize any
Yeah.
thought. Yeah.
For most of us, there is only the unattended moment, the moment in and out of time.
The section that we read, I'm jumping maybe too far, but there's a section that's almost a prayer. The short section, a lady whose shrine stands on the promontory, pray for all those who are in ships.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Has to do with fish.
Well, he believes in prayer.
Yeah,
He was, I think he converted to Catholicism, didn't he?
he converted to High Anglicanism.
To what?
Yeah.
Anglican?
Anglican, it's High Anglican.
Okay.
It does all the full Monty of prayers,
Yeah.
dressing up and feasts and
Mhm.
Would that be Episcopalianism in America?
No, I don't think so.
So,
No.
They're not the same, or they are? I thought the Anglicans became Episcopalian, so they
Yeah.
didn't.
yes, in America, so they could not be English.
Yeah, but your High Anglican are actually accepted into the Catholic Church. A priest under High Anglican can just get a job as a Catholic priest, using the wrong word.
Okay.
And they can, and they're therefore married because they can be married. So there are a small number of Catholic priests who have wives, if they've come through the High Anglican route. So I'll go High Anglican. I think, measure my bets.
Oh,
I love the description. This has nothing to do with explaining it. It's just the beauty of it. You know, a beach, describing a beach. The beaches where it tosses its hints earlier and other creation. The starfish, the horseshoe crab, the whale's backbone. It's so lovely. Like you go to the beach and you see something, you wonder how many million years old it is, you know?
Yeah.
It's
Creates.
it's suggested that you read it aloud, like we do,
Me too.
Gotcha.
and over and over and over again. Supposedly you get more meaning from it the more you read it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hmm. Is Amiga. S-E-I-N-A, scenes.
And he has that thing about, I think Joe read it on the train, fast forward travelers, not escaping from the past or the future. You are not the same people who left the station or who will arrive at any terminus.
Yeah.
And further on, he's at this again, O voyagers, O seamen, but fare forward, voyagers, not farewell. So he's that kind of theme that we're moving anyway. You know what I mean? Like, there's no, yeah.
You know the way Stephen thinks that, you loaned me £1 last week, but I'm not the same man you loaned the money to. Don't know you.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it is true because all our atoms are changing, and we're not the same collection of atoms as you loaned that million books to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very gripping. That idea of a whole ship full of people.
Yeah.
And as they move through the sea, which kind of never changes around you, you're different. It's kind of spooky because travel is a bit like that. And this idea that I keep talking about space travel, that if you get to the speed of sound, you don't age.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of science fiction has a lot of fun with this kind of thing, yeah. But it's
that idea of a ship full.
In reality, and we're always moving. You like stillness. Yeah. You talk about sitting still or whatever, but in fact, the Earth is moving all the time, and we're moving. Yeah.
We have the faintest idea where we're going.
Yeah.
And you think of all the immigrants that got to America by ship.
Yeah.
And the ships that didn't make it, whether it was children on a ship during World War II, trying to escape England, or the Titanic, of course, and and many coffin ships. People were on the ship but couldn't survive. His poetry just has so many ripples of resonance in our experience.
There is something magical about it. Station, isn't it?
About what?
There's something magical about a train leaving.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I like that image when you look back and you see the tracks coming closer together.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. The point of perspective is narrower.
And also that split second, if another train is beside you, and you're not sure for a split second.
Oh yeah.
You don't know who's moving.
Yes.
Yeah.
For those of you who drive, or even for passengers in the car, there is a little perceptual trick that you can play, which is as you're going down, instead of thinking of the car moving down the road,
Yeah.
you can think of the road moving
Oh.
under the car.
Ah.
That the car is
Yeah.
Yeah.
still, and
Yeah.
and the earth is rolling under the car.
You're still.
And that works really well on a double-decker bus. If you go upstairs and sit on the front seat, now I remember this at 4 years of age,
Mm.
if you sit, you can definitely see the road is moving, not you.
Not
No,
you.
Oh. Oh.
It's yeah. And as you say, that's perception, which is reality.
Mm.
Well, we do have places in Ireland, particularly in the mountains, where if you
Oh, yeah.
stop your car, it'll start to go backwards, uphill.
Yep.
It'll
Yeah.
go backwards uphill.
Yeah.
Yep. I've done
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. In Hawaii as well, there's a space where the same thing happens.
What?
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
strange
It's like as if
experience.
yeah. Yeah. You're going backwards.
Mm.
I don't know whether Elliot knew about that or not.
Mhm.
Can you get to the top of the hill, or do you have to go a different way?
Yeah, you have to
No.
stop. Yeah, you have to cycle really hard to get down those hills.
Yeah.
That's the equivalent of going up.
Do I know you people?
We also have a phenomenon where rivers are inclined to go up the sides of mountains rather than down.
That I've heard of. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's quite
Yeah.
extraordinary.
There's a place down in Meath that are called the 5 or the 7 miracles of, I can't remember the name, a monastic settlement, and the water flowing upwards is one of them. The miracle.
Miracle.
Miracolo. Seagull, and under the oppression of the silent fog, the tolling bell.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're right exactly what I'm looking at now. The tolling bell measures time, not our time, rung by the unhurried.
Oh.
Or the word chronometers was in here too.
Older than the time of chronometers, older than time counted by anxious, worried women lying awake calculating the future.
Trying to do a Penelope wheel and weaving. And of course, St. Patrick, his great magic was his bell, wasn't it? The
Yeah.
St. Patrick's bell, this was the thing all the pagans feared. Sound of the bell was had some quality to it that I can't remember.
For whom the bell tolls.
For whom the bell tolls, there it is.
Oh, or
There you
the.
go.
Mhm.
The church near me has dispensed with the bell, and it has been replaced by an electronic sound, which sounds a bit like a bell. Dong, dong, and it is most unimpressive. It doesn't do what the bell used to do, in terms of putting the fear of God in you,
You've probably lost your bell ringer, Joe. You need to get somebody to volunteer.
I'd say it's all been done by artificial intelligence now, from the
Probably.
Oh, no.
with a mobile phone. Oh,
But I'm sure you've heard the theory that actually it was the church, and the church is concerned with time,
yeah.
that actually eventually led to the factory system,
Yes.
and to the general population being very concerned about time and wanting to be on time. There's a very interesting little book called The Homeless Mind by the sociologist Peter Berger and his wife. And they talk about what happens in, quote, less developed countries when corporations go there and
Yeah.
how they have to train the people
Sure. Mhm.
in time, to be concerned about time and to be concerned about being on time. And they also have to train people how to ignore their families.
Yes. Yes.
That they just can't have the workers running off to, tend to their mothers and fathers if they're sick and all that. And the thesis of the book is, by the time we're trained to, one, spend a lot of time in a particular place like a factory doing repetitive work, and you have been there at a particular time and taken our breaks at a particular time, and arranging for other people to take care of our family members if there's a problem, that we lose a lot. That we become very abstracted. That we're not, it's going a little too far to say that we're not fully human, but it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a whole different sense of time.
Yeah.
Well, it's a sense of being controlled.
Yeah. It's very closely linked to monetization of
Yeah.
work of
Right.
people's labor. You have to bring the time under control. These people, they'd spend an hour on the phone talking to one customer, and think of a call center where you have 45 seconds per call. You can't spend 2 hours talking to someone who's suicidal and helping them out. No, it's just I'm going to I'm going to escalate you to a supervisor. After so many seconds. Yeah. Of course, the Irish haven't. Well, John, must have plenty of examples of that problem. Our neighbours and former masters in the neighbouring island had with the Irish sense of time.
Right. All times were approximate.
All times are to the best. Yeah. All times, and I know it's in the Irish language, isn't it? The times. I just can't bring it to mind. But
the phrase.
Time, but the whole treatment, the grammatical treatment of time is different, as if it didn't matter, Yeah, that's it. We don't talk about distance. Big Bay, Tummel Beog, Tall Night Shin, Tummel Beog, Shears and Shride. That little place, is not a little distance down the road, it's a little time down the road.
You have to turn right at the pub at the end of the road, and then there's another pub where you turn left.
But we use time to measure distance, not distance. So we say that'll be 5 minutes away. Well, 5 minutes by Concord is very different to 5 minutes in your wheelchair.
Yeah, exactly.
In Ireland, just 5 minutes.
We say
Speaking of distance, I noticed a new function on Google Maps where you're given the distance between A and B where you want to go, but it tells you how long it would take by car. But it also will tell you how long it would take by bus and gives you the number of the bus that you need. And finally, it tells you the walking distance.
That's
I
right.
only discovered this last week.
Oh yeah, I got that. And if the combination of buses that will work, But try doing. Sorry to wander off message again, but try doing Paddy Dignam's funeral by Google Maps, and the number of times it interrupts you to find a better route for you.
The one I like is about distance is as the crow flies.
Yes.
Really like,
yeah. Which is great if you're a crow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it'd be faster if you were a hawk.
Well, since we're talking about time, let me go ahead. Or actually, why doesn't Orla? Are you still here, Orla? She may have drifted off.
No,
Yeah.
I haven't. I'm not. I just can't get the. I am here, not here, but I
Okay.
am here. But I have. There's my picture back on screen now. It's just there's a function on my thing where you sort of can get rid of your own face.
Mm.
Oh, okay. Do you see the place in the book, in the poem where it says trying to unweave, unwind, unravel, and piece together the past and the future between
Yes,
midnight
I've underlined it because I think it's very interesting.
Well,
When
great.
the past is all deception.
Please read that whole thing down to the bell.
Okay. Lying awake, calculating the future, trying to unweave, unwind, unravel, and piece together the past and the future. Between midnight and dawn, when the past is all deception, the future featureless, before the morning watch, when time stops and time is never ending, and the grand swell, that is and was from the beginning, clang the bell.
Mm.
I think that's a nice little summary of the time conundrum.
Mm.
Would someone like to read the first little section in part 2 that starts, where is there an end of it? And ends, yeah.
Okay,
Sure,
where's
I'll
there
pick
an
it up.
end of it?
Sorry, Annie.
Okay, I'm doing it then. You're grand, done it, go. Because that's where I was waiting to get to. I like it. Where is there an end of it? The soundless wailing, the silent withering of autumn flowers, dropping their petals and remaining motionless. Where is there an end to the drifting wreckage? The prayer of the bone on the beach, the unprayable prayer, the calamitous annunciation. Grief.
Can somebody explain calamitous annunciation? The annunciation is when Mary was told that she was going to conceive. Is that correct?
Yeah, the mother,
Yeah,
yeah,
the
she'd be the
angel
mother of
Yeah.
appeared
God.
to
Mm.
So does anybody know why it would be calamitous?
The unprayable prayer.
Kind of a contradiction, like even 2 words before it there, the unprayable prayer.
Prayable, yeah. At the
Okay.
calamitous annunciation.
Yeah.
The prayer of the bone on the beach, the unprayable.
Yeah.
Oh, the unprayable prayer at the calamitous. Huh.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well,
But you could also be talking about something else. I mean, in the Joycean way, it can have multiple meanings. So, calamitous annunciation could have been his girlfriend dumping him,
Yeah,
because the annunciation is when somebody announces something.
yeah.
Mm.
So, it could have been something, it's used in the vernacular in other ways. And
okay.
on these things online, they were saying that each of these poems also refer to a woman. Each of the
Each of the
quartet.
4 components. Oh, really?
I have. It was just when I was looking at potential books to look at.
Okay. Well, this particular thing here, talking about how the poem flows. This is one sentence that begins, where is there an end of it, and ends with
Okay.
prayer and Boniface Annunciation. So,
And then the next line, he says, there is no end but addition. Yeah.
Yeah. I take that to be mathematical. That, you know, for instance, we know there's an infinite amount of numbers because we can always add one to any number you can think of. You can always add one more number, add a one, and that would be no end, just addition. So you end up with the mathematics of the infinite, which is different from, you know, you can do strange things. 2 can equal 1 and all this sort of thing if you use the infinite.
and consequence of furling days and hours, while emotion takes to itself the emotionless years of living among the breakage, or what was believed in as the most reliable, and therefore the fittest for renunciation.
Okay, so maybe he dumped her, and then he had to live among the breakage of what happened, and because she was steady, she was the one he was playing around, and she was the steady girlfriend, and he dumped her. He renounced her.
God.
That's just a reading. That's just the girl reading.
Okay.
That's very depressing, Orla.
Well, we can talk about renunciation as in Peter, okay, go back to religion, Peter renouncing Jesus, and I think that's 3 times, is it, or 4 times?
3 times. 3 times for the cock crew.
Yep.
Is there an end of it?
Renunciation, rejection.
The woman withering of autumn flowers, dropping their petals out. Where is there an end to the drifting wreckage? Prayer of the bone and the beach, the unprayable prayer at the calamitous renunciation. There is no. But in addition, the trailing consequence of further days and hours, while emotion takes to itself the emotionless years of living among the wreckage. What was believed in as the most reliable, and therefore the fittest for renunciation. But Joe, here's answering your mathematical thing right here. There is the final addition. Remember you were talking about you could always add one more number?
Yeah. But he's
There is
calling.
the final addition, the failing pride or resentment at failing powers.
Okay.
The unattached devotion to which might pass for devotionless in a leaking boat with a slow leakage. The silent listening to the undeniable, the clamor of the bell of the last annunciation.
That could be death. The end of life.
That's how
Yeah,
I
I think at least, you know, as a increasingly elderly fellow, it's speaking directly to me.
I see it that way too.
In a drifting boat with a slow leakage, when we're declining.
That's actually a devastating description.
It is.
And which, if I can bring up the Chinese again, in Chinese medicine, the idea of preserving one's life is to preserve the energy of individual organs, and that you never want to you never want to exhaust any particular organ, because at a certain stage of life you cannot renew it.
Mhm.
So it's, to put it in, if you have a savings account, you want the expenditures to go out in a manner that, leaves you with something there. So when you get in a drifting boat with a slow leakage,
Yeah, yeah, that's life.
That's right.
and to ramble on a little bit, when I used to give people treatments, some of my favorite people were the people who were about 29 to 32 years of age, who would come and talk about how they don't understand it. They used to have so much energy, and now they're getting tired. And I would give them the classic Chinese reason, which is, when you're born, your parents have given you a certain amount of energy to help you get through those first years.
Yes.
And when you get to about that age of 28 to 32, you've used it up.
Mm.
There, and that's when you need to make a life change, because you have to earn your health after that. So
You're running on empty.
Whoa.
Can I still do that, or am I too old?
Yeah, we used
no,
it up
you
already.
can always do it. You can always do it until you can't do it. That's
Yeah.
so. In my particular case, I mean, I'm very active right now. Then I'm very active when I go dancing, but I do spend a lot of time in the prone position, just like I'm a boat floating around in the shallows, resting and breathing and gathering energy together.
Yeah, I've discovered the nap.
Yeah.
Naps are great if you're ready for them. If you're ready for naps, are great.
I'm ready.
In the paper at the weekend, there was stuff about some of the cheating at the Olympics, and it was homologous blood transfusions.
What?
And what I think that they give people, I'm guessing, I'm not quite sure what they are, but they were caught. Some of the athletes were caught, and they give them extra energy.
Yeah.
Because last year, my mother and my uncle were given blood transfusions of particular type of enriched blood to give them more energy.
Yeah.
And did that work?
I think it did.
It does, yeah. Athletes inject themselves with blood that they have taken from themselves earlier. After a certain number of hours, they re-inject it, and this increases their energy levels, and it's illegal under the rules of the Olympics.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were at that in the Tour de France. They had that Lance Armstrong had that down to a T, with all the team changing his blood to do with the and the athletes are always at that as well. Yeah,
that was a clever one, but that went on for 7 years.
They're kind of always ahead of the people that are trying to catch them.
Mm-hmm.
There was a runner from Finland. Sorry. No, there's a runner from Finland, Lasse Viren, going back maybe 20, 30 years. And he won the 5,000 meters and the 10,000 meters at one Olympics.
Yeah.
And he never won anything in between. And he came out the next Olympics and won the two of them again.
Yeah.
And eventually they found out that, and he admitted that what he was doing was changing his blood completely,
Oh my God.
Yeah, kind of, Yeah. But it was the citrus really that affected a lot of it.
Yeah.
The Tour de France.
Ooh, it doesn't sound worth it.
Well,
Yeah, it's attachment to things that are really not worth it. But you know, to call upon another poet, Dante, you know, people have to go through these things. This is how we learn.
There's a lovely piece. I'm jumping again, Duncan, so correct me if I'm doing the wrong thing. There's a lovely piece just after the prayer of the one annunciation. It seems as one becomes older that the past has another pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Ceases to be a mere sequence.
Is that how far up is that, Joe?
It's
Oh,
really,
yeah, I see it is.
Yeah,
That's-
Yeah.
that sums it up for me. You know, I noticed it's changing. I see it completely differently than I did 10 years ago, and different then.
Yeah.
10 years
Yeah. Yes. One of my favorites is people complaining about they don't have much time.
Yeah.
Meaning they're not going to live that much longer. And I'm going, you know what? Maybe clockwise, that's true.
Yeah.
But I'm just amazed at when I settle down of how time is totally transformed for me.
Yeah.
You know, I can go into to take naps again, but I like this layer of where you're not in a nap,
Yeah.
but you're relaxed and you're breathing I'm just relaxed, I'm breathing, and I'm just feeling the sensations around me and hearing the sounds around me. It's really, I feel like I'm, this is going too far, but I feel like I'm in some mystical place.
well, it's a different way of being in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Everything has its trade-offs, and I find being old besides being interesting and sometimes very annoying, is very wonderful.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
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 I no longer work for a living. I don't have to get up and go out and be somewhere.
Yes.
I wish I had done this at 4 years of age.
It's a whole new independence.
It is, if you're looking at it that way, yeah. Provided you have a roof over your head.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, as long as you can have some dignity in your life.
Yeah.
A friend of mine advised me when I was coming up to retirement that there were a couple of rules. The first one was that you needed to be out of the house at 9:15 in the morning. And I queried that, and the guy said, you need to be out from under her feet. And the second one was that you need to develop your coffee contacts. In other words, to stay in touch with people and stay alive. Yeah. So I've lived by those precepts ever since.
I love that. I love that restatement of the principle. But there is definitely, I find myself making decisions now that I am running out of time and I'm not doing things. I'm sad to tell you all that my little cat Joy died on Sunday.
Oh
no,
Joe, that's sorry.
But I am now doing the calculation. If I were to, after a suitable period, acquire another cat, that cat may live far longer than me. And I don't want to leave a cat in the world that has lost his or her human.
Right. But they may have a foster cat system
Oh, we do, but you know, the cat will go on a journey to the cattery and be put in a pod, and hopefully, you know, we'll have to. I don't want. I'm glad Joy died ahead of me because I used to worry about it.
Oh, I have the same worries, Joe.
Yeah, I'm saying I will feed whatever comes to my door, but I won't actually get into a relationship that will, you know, in other words, when my doorbell doesn't answer, he'll just move on to another door, you know.
What age was he, Joe?
Oh, she was she was 12 years old.
Yeah.
She was HIV, feline HIV positive. From birth. I knew that when I got her, and but I don't know why she died. She died within 30 seconds.
Yeah.
That's too bad.
We've got a couple of those in our family, a couple HIV
cats.
Yeah.
The kittens are being born with it, you see, that this little girl was born with it. But that's the shortest life any cat has had here.
Wow.
Only when she wasn't 12 with me, because she was with her first owners who had to abandon her to the cattery for the same reason as I have expounded.
Okay.
But like you do, you know, you say, well, I don't think I'll do that. I won't do that 5 years in Vietnam that I was planning to do, you know, to kind of study the Vietnamese side of the Great American War, as they call it. You know, I'll skip that book and I get on to the next one. You know?
But maybe you can travel now, Joe, because who would mind the cat if you weren't there?
And more importantly, who would find me if the cat wasn't here?
You better leave your number with Duncan.
That's another problem.
You can travel for a few years and then adopt another cat, because lots of people need, you know, and in fact, if you're not thinking of going somewhere soon, I would adopt a cat immediately.
Yeah, well, if I told you that my cardiologist in 1918 told me, I think I can give you 5 years, and that was 6 years ago. There's a certain kind of short-termism to my view of things.
But there's also fostering cats.
Oh yeah, you can do that sort of thing. Yeah,
but
I would just wait and see if another cat comes and knocks on you.
Yeah, the great river god may, or the great cat god may send me something, you know. I'll probably open the door in the morning and there'll be one out there with a little suitcase packed.
Oh
my goodness! I just realized that I have let us go 10 minutes over time.
Oh my God! Time.
Oh, good grief!
Time present.
That's what we get
Time
for
present.
talking about the flexibility of time.
Time past, time future. We're in time future now.
Okay. Well, I've certainly enjoyed this. So next week we would go ahead and we would read the final one, which I think is a fairly short. That's what someone told me. But anyway, after we've read that, and then we'll figure out how we're going to approach our discussion of the poem or the book as a whole as the four quartets.
Yeah.
And it's really not past time to think about, do we make a decision of what we're going to do after four quartets?
I don't think anything's been mentioned, has it?
Can I make a suggestion? That we do the Wasteland as we've been into Elliot?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah, that'd be fine with me, sure.
Yeah.
It's 100 years, isn't it, this year? And
it's
24. It's either last year or this year, I can't remember which. But it's the 100th anniversary deserves a...
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
That's no easier than this one. Yeah.
I think we've
Okay, so
enjoyed
Little
Core
Giddings,
Quartet.
Little
So
Giddings next week. Little Giddings next week, and then we'll see where the conversation takes us and how long the conversation goes for. And then
Yeah,
when
the
we-
wasteland was 1922.
22. There you go.
Time flies, Joe.
Sorry.
Time flies.
This time.
Okay, any last minute things anybody wants to say besides thank you and see you
Thank
next time?
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you and good night.
Great reading, great assignment.
Bye.
Yeah.
All
Lovely.
right.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.